Welcome to the gathering. I am Brittany.
I'm Felicia.
And I am Janelle, and this is Bella, and we are so excited to be back with you
guys. Guys, we are going to jump right into the video. Due to the nature of the topic, we want to give a quick disclaimer that we're not going to hold you. It's going to be quick. We think that would just be the best when it comes to what we're talking about. But we wanted to start by asking a couple of questions. So have you, or do you know someone that has ever thought of themselves as lazy or a procrastinator? Do you struggle when it comes to comparison, thinking that you're not as intelligent as the person next to you? Do you think that you're forgetful? Do you often lose things? If so, if any of that applies to you or someone that you know, even your child, this video may be for you. Today, we are talking about ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So we are going to get into a little bit more about what it looks like for children and adults. But again, we're going to keep it short as opposed to brushing it off. If you have felt that about yourself, or if your child has said that, as opposed to brushing it off, what we want you to do is watch this video and then consult a professional, your therapist, your psychiatrist, psychologist, even your medical doctor.
So let's talk about children and what ADHD can look like in them. I think that we constantly have the conversation with friends, with other parents, sometimes with ourselves about children and their activity and their behavior in certain situations. And many times those activities and behaviors can be linked to ADHD, but not every time. So here's a couple, facts about what that looks like in children. First, all of these presentations generally happen before the age of 12 and sometimes as early as 3 years old. So that 3-year-old who looks like they're just really, really active, or they just need a lot of engagement, could possibly be suffering from some symptoms of ADHD. But it's important to remember that it won't just start as a teenager, if that makes sense. So being that it does not start in teenage years and these symptoms generally develop much younger, you probably want to do your due diligence in researching and figuring out what specific symptoms your child is actually experiencing. Because the thing about ADHD is that there are like 3 types. There's 3 what we call subgroups. So the first one is predominantly inattentive. That's where the symptoms are really about inattention and not being able to focus on things. Our second is predominantly impulsive or hyperactive, and that is not being able to stay still, making decisions without quote unquote thinking about it. And then we have our combination, which is a combination, of course, of inattention as well as hyperactivity or impulsivity. Now, what does that look like in a child? So we have our children who deal with losing things very easily. We have our children who deal with interrupting conversations or excessive talking, which I think all of us as kids have probably experienced. But this is like very excessive. It's very difficult to disengage with them, and they are very interruptive when it comes to others talking. They like to be a part of every conversation that is happening. We have children who cannot focus on one task. A matter of fact, they may start several and kind of run between them, working on one a little bit at a time, and it's starting something new. We have excessive movement, like excessive physical movement, such as being really fidgety. You know, the little kids, you say, he just can't stay still. She just can't stay still. And speaking of, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but ADHD actually occurs more in male children than in female children. So a lot of times we say, oh, he's just being a boy, right? He just has a lot of energy, but it actually occurs a little bit more in boys than it does in girls.
ADHD, of course, looks very different in adults as it might look in children. So I think we all think about kind of your classic child with ADHD, a child that's like running around and jumping on tables and, like Janelle said, can't sit still. However, as an adult, it looks very different. I mean, it would be crazy to see a 30-year-old woman jumping up on a table and running around and just talking. We learn those social cues of what to do and what not to do. So we kind of adapt as an adult, but I think it's important to note that if you feel like you might have ADHD as an adult, you probably had it as a child. It just went undiagnosed. So people don't just develop ADHD as an adult or as a teenager. Like Janelle said, it has always been present. And I think it is more diagnosed in boys. And so it is likely seen, like the children who have kind of behavioral disorders are the ones that cause disruptions, are the ones that are more likely to be diagnosed and seek services, and because they really want to, control those children. However, if you are higher functioning, you don't have as many academic or disruptive issues, they just kind of let you coast along and you just kind of find ways to manage. You never learn how to actually sit down and study for a test, because you just kind of learn how to memorize things, or you just kind of naturally able to pick up things and then regurgitate it on the test, which is why we kind of go so many years just adapting and kind of making excuses for why we are the way we are. It could be many, many years until those skills are actually challenged to where we may not know what's going on. So when we first decided to talk about this topic, I thought that I would share my own personal story, because it did not dawn on me that I could potentially have ADHD until I was definitely in my 30s. I was just really beating up on myself one day. I missed a very important doctor's appointment, and it was one that was going to have to do with like a major thing that was coming up, and it was an appointment that I really needed to keep, because it had taken me some time to get in with this particular physician. And I got up on time, and I was ready. I was dressed, and then all of a sudden, I just lost track of time. And I ran, and it was like, no, you're too late. You're too late. You can't. And I remember like leaving and just kind of walking around to like neighboring stores. I was like, what is wrong with you? Like why are you such a loser? Why are you this way? Like, what is wrong with you? Why can't you just leave out the house on time? Why can't you just do that? And so I actually had a conversation with one of my supervisors, who's a psychologist. And so we kind of talked through kind of the way adult ADHD kind of presents itself. And so she's very familiar with kind of what I was experiencing. She's like, you just found out how to adapt. And so there are lots of adults who might feel like, I'm just so lazy. Like, why can't I just get motivated? Why can't I just start on this assignment? Why am I so unorganized? Why am I so forgetful? Why do I lose my keys? If I need something important for work, like that's the one thing I forgot, or I'm always late. Like, I feel like you might feel like you're the bad friend because you're the friend that everyone kind of chatters about, because you're always late and you're always, on time. Like, they kind of know that about you. And it's like, am I a bad friend? Like, I don't want to be this way. I don't want to make them wait. I don't want to make us off task, but it just kind of happens. And so I think that there's a lot of shame and guilt attached to these feelings, however, and you may not know why. So if you've been feeling this way, it might be something to look into. And you may say, well, I can't get IEP, I can't get services. Like, what benefits would I have to kind of exploring this as an adult? I think having a label or something to kind of explain why, like, no, you're not lazy, you're not a bad friend, you're not a bad person. There may be something going on inside of your brain that has caused you to kind of be this way, that they unfortunately missed all the while that you were in school, either in primary school or secondary school, maybe even in college if you had a more structured college environment. And it's not until you kind of have to structure things on your own and be at a place doing a certain thing at a certain time, kind of on your own volition, that you see that there's a problem. So I think getting diagnosed and kind of looking into this as an adult may help you not only kind of maybe put a label and explain kind of the things that you've been feeling, but you may also, if you are deciding to go back to college or maybe deciding to get a graduate degree, it might be something that you might need before you kind of start that journey.
What we'd like to encourage would be to take the first step, right? So we talked about the ways that these natural occurring feelings and thoughts about oneself, naturally occurring thoughts and feelings about oneself, how they have lasting impact, right? So they definitely impact one's self-esteem. They impact my ideas of self-worth. They impact how I feel about myself in relationships. And then just one's propensity to set goals and have aspirations, right? So it definitely has a heavy bearing on one's altitude, or at least what they think of their own personal growth and altitude, right? So we want to make sure that you get a diagnosis for a couple of reasons. First, we want, like Carlisha said, for there to be something for you to be able to put your finger on why these things are happening. It is not just your idiosyncrasies. It's not just your, I'm not just always late, or I'm not always forgetting my keys. There's a reason why this is happening. And so then you can intentionally adapt so that you can try to improve in some of these areas and become even more functioning, higher functioning than what you are. But we also want to make sure that we are not confusing this particular condition with other conditions that it can look similar to. So some of these symptoms can mirror anxiety, depression, bipolar, even learning disorders. So many different conditions look like these symptoms. And so if you want to intentionally address what you have going on, your unique presentation, and however the condition is manifesting within you, you've got to go and get a diagnosis so that you can start on the road to healthier living. And so it's not like one test that you can take to result in a diagnosis of ADHD. There are screenings, so we're going to link some screenings below that you can take to kind of start you on your journey, because then that will hopefully lead you to talking to a professional, somebody that's trained. And so if for a child, it can look like an interview with the child, the adult, or the parent, the counselor, a medical doctor, a therapist. For an adult, it can look like an interview with your psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist, maybe your medical doctor, because they will probably need to roll out some additional things. But we want you to start the journey, but we want it to, again, not be self-diagnosed. And this is something that's very underdiagnosed. We want to make sure that you are taking the steps to get a proper diagnosis so that, again, we can help you start on your journey towards healthier living.
Guys, like Brittany said, the first step is to, take advantage of those resources and those self-testing measures that we're going to offer for you. But that is only the first step. You have got to follow that up with professional assistance, whether it be your trusted medical providers, your educational professionals, whoever it is in your circle, in your life, in your village, who can help you with the next steps. And as a reminder, these symptoms, whether in adults or children, have got to occur for at least 6 months consistently. And I mention that because with children, sometimes you'll drop them off to their grandma's house and they just run around the whole day. When they home with me, they're quiet and chill and still. Children are very sensitive, or can be very sensitive to environments. So if they're having certain behaviors or symptoms that's only occurring in one place, only occurring one time of day, you want to take note of that, because when it comes to ADHD, it occurs consistently despite the environment. Okay, please take note of that. We want to be careful not to diagnose our children with something based on a specific trigger or a specific situation. And with that being said, we thank you for being open to this conversation, because who wants to talk about their personal actions, their personal decisions, their personal discomforts, behaviors that we see in our children, the children that we love so much and want to be well and want to do well, but may have some challenges. Thank you for watching this and for giving us a little of your time.
Absolutely. And we hope that you guys enjoyed this conversation. Let us know if you were diagnosed as an adult and if you were like me, had this realization late in life. And let us know if being diagnosed, if that made a difference in how you saw yourself and the characteristics that you attribute yourself. Or is this something that you're currently wondering about for your child? Just let us know how a diagnosis or ADHD treatment has impacted your life. And remember to like this video, comment, share, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell so you never miss an upload. We're glad
Absolutely.
Until next time. Bye.
Bye.